In this video help, we're going to cover some management issues and answers and tips. One of the things I want to point out is this application, as it's offered on iTunes for the iPhone and iPad, has some limitations. The application itself is a single user, and it's only available when it's on the iTunes store for one user on, say, for example, one iPad or one iPhone. If you need a larger application capability than this, you want to contact the developer, and the developer offers this version basically that you see here with or for the Mac, Windows, or the cloud. The cloud being a multi-user application that provides the usability for multiple devices and multiple users all at one time. This is more or less the standard for this kind of an application. One of the points I wanted to make with this application in this video is that you have to make a selection when you're setting up the application to fit your particular company's needs. When your business requires multiple users, then you want to contact us and we'll explain how the cloud version works. It's simply this. It basically allows people that are on a shift, for example, like the servers themselves, to use a device, and the device that they're adding information to could be viewed through the multi-user aspect of this on the host in the kitchen, for example, or at the front desk, or any manager or manager person that wants to access the information can have it live at the time that it's actually occurring. You can see the screens changing as people are changing them. It's not immediate. Basically what happens, this application when it's on the cloud requires a login and username, and what that does, it separates each user so that as they access a screen, for example the meal order screen, if they're in a particular record by a particular order number, that order number is going to be blocked until they get out of it. So what you want to make sure to train your people is that when they create an order, don't leave it up on the screen. What you want to do is go back to the main screen, this one, and this is the main screen, where on the main screen it also has the video tutorials that are provided for the individuals for training. Right now it shows 2, but when it's done there's going to be about 5 of them in here when we complete making all the videos. So this is where you really want to be when the screen is not in use, where people are just static. You want this screen to be shown, and that's very simple also, because if you go to the, let's go back to the order screen over here, it's also accessible under the Do Action menu, and you come down here where it says Video Help Screens. You can go to that screen either by clicking on the main screen or this button here to go back to that screen. So, and there's one other thing I want to point out that managers need to be aware of. Tips collected. In certain businesses, the application of tips or the collection of tips is not very interesting to the management. They don't really care about it. If that is the case, there is one issue that you have to be aware of. As you're checking out the patron and they're going home and they're paying for their bill, they need to, if you're putting a amount on a credit card or it's going to be written out on a check, it should include the tip if the tip is going to be paid back later to the individual server. So what happens is, as you add all this information in this screen, and this is generally where all the servers are working, or in the kitchen they're taking a look at either the list view to see what orders are completed and whatnot as far as the status is concerned, or management or the front desk is looking to see when tables are ready to be cleared or in the process of being cleared and cleaned. That particular tip information becomes important, because if you're going to bring it back and go through the report that I'm going to be showing you, you want to be able to pay at the end of the shift or whatever is appropriate for the way you do your business, to pay the server back for tips that are collected. So this is tips collected, this gray field. There's a little gimmick that we're doing here, and the reason behind this is that we do not need people browsing this report. For example, comparing what other servers are getting tips and how much they are getting. That's none of their business. It's really what the management shows on this screen, and as the server is putting their individual tips, or the person that's checking out the person and they're taking the payment can put the tip in that is collected at the time of the actual payment. in the navigation menu, right directly across from where the main menu button is at, what I've done is I've inserted a button that's hidden. It's right about in the center of this area. What this does, if you click on it, is it sends you to this report. And in this report, basically what does happen is, and of course there's only 2 records in here now because those are the only ones that are in the system. If you want to take a look at a specific date, what you would do is you would start the search and then correctly put in the order date by the drop down. Now if you click on this, you're going to bring up this scroller so you can go ahead and put the date in. Do not do it when you're just viewing the screen. What you want to be able to do is you want to be able to do it during the search, and what that'll do is it'll provide all the records for that date. If you need to look at an individual, you would put in the date that you're looking for to pay the server back, and then also add their name from the server drop-down list. So if I click on in this case I don't have it live, but if I go in and I do the search, you'll see that when I click on it, the order date will come down and also the server list, so you can pick the server. The rest of this is superfluous information, is not required. If you're on a Mac or Windows or on the cloud, you can do a date range. The iPad and iPhone don't allow you to do a date range like this formula, because this is actually a scroller, and the scroller is not going to allow you to edit the screen unless you, for example, in this case it's popping up a keyboard where it doesn't do that on all the screens. If you went in here, you could do greater than or equal to, and then put the date in and do this formula, and then you can run this. Now this doesn't always show up in every screen on the application, so if you do have it available, you can try to use this as well. For example, the date that we were looking at was 6/8, so I could say 6/8, I believe it was, and 2016. Make sure you put your slashes in so that they're available to you. And I'm just going to say everything greater than and equal to this date, and then I'm going to go ahead and perform the find. And what it's going to do is it's going to bring up the 2 records that were in there, and it's going to show the actual date. Now you can try this if you get a keyboard in the rest of the application where you actually have this field where it wants a formula for a date range for the order that was taken, then you can use it and put it in. Now, obviously, we'll come down here. It'll show you the current person, for example, like Bill Franks. These are the 2 things that he did. Now, it's important to understand that when you're doing a collection of a tip, here's the tip, here's the actual tip sum. Now, if you go in here and you put this in and it's changed later on for whatever reason, then this will be updated. The actual tips paid is the important part. If you put in the amount in here with this keyboard, when it comes up now, you do have a decimal point, so you can do fractional amounts. When you do that, the information that's popped up here will deduct the amount, and this will be whatever it is when it's deducted for the tip on the sum. Now, what you want to also do is recognize that if it's on a Visa, then it's a tip that is actually on a credit card. If it were cash, it's unlikely that the cash would be handed over to, unless the thing was actually taken in cash. And then what had happened is normally they would either leave it on the table, and that would not require you to take that money as far as paying the bill. It would be in the sum of the bill, but it would be sum in the cash, and that would give you the amount, and you would not enter that cash in the meal order screen as far as cash taken. You would just put in the amount, the actual amount was taken. Now you can do whatever you want. I mean, if you want to include it in the invoice as far as the money that was taken, then you can, if you want to. You have to recognize one thing, and there's no way around this, but if you are taking tips in and then you have taxes, they are taxable. And if you tax them at the time, then it doesn't have to be collected from the individual server because it's part of the actual amount that is being also taxed in the restaurant when it's checked out. Now, if you're not using tax for whatever reason for certain items, then that is not affecting it. But as far as the tip is concerned, there would be no tip shown as far as, or no tip tax shown. You can see with cash, that's the only exception to the rule here. And this is all for this date. Now, obviously, when you get in here and there are many, many days where you have many, many servers, You have to really consider that when you're going through there that you need to make sure you put the date and the server. And if you miss that step, it's going to give you some erroneous information. So it takes you a little bit of time to identify it and do the search correctly. And when you have fewer records, and we're going to go ahead and do this, let's just go ahead and say, let's do Bill Franks, because there's only a couple in there now. We'll do Bill Franks, because he's the one we have in there, and then go ahead and perform the find. And they both come up, but I want to show you down here that if you do a single record, like for example, I omit one by clicking anywhere in here and say omit it, omit the record, you'll see that it's going to change the sum down here. The point I'm making is that if you need to omit certain records, or you want to do a find for specific information and it adds a couple of extra records that are not going to be included in there, you can omit them, and that will change the output as far as the sum of the tips and the tip balance for the server. Now obviously if you pay the server for those amounts, it's going to show a balance if they did not get paid. In this case, if I added the 50 cents in there, then this would go away and it would be 0, and the tip sum would be down here at the bottom showing a balance and the total sum of tips that were provided. If you have any questions, as always, you can always contact us and we can give you supporting information. And the other thing is, if this application has some issues where you want something added to it, you can also contact the developer and we can accommodate those changes if you require them. Thank you.